Hi, I'm Reed Holson. Welcome to CityLink's Directions, where we sit down and have a conversation with one of the 12 city directors for the city of Sioux Falls. And we're pleased to introduce Jason Reisdorfer, one of our newest directors for the city of Sioux Falls. Jason, welcome to the city and to CityLink.
Thank you.
Now, Paul Tenhaken, our mayor, appointed you to this position of Director of Innovation and Technology back in October.
Right.
So we'll get into that a little bit later on, but we want to get to know who you are, where you came from, about your family, and what you did before you came to the city.
Sure. So I've been a resident of Sioux Falls my whole life. My family moved here when I was 5, actually, from Worthington, Minnesota. That's where my roots are at. But grew up here, went to school here, married my high school sweetheart, Erica, when we were both at Roosevelt High School. So we've been together since we were 16. We have 2 daughters, and they go to Discovery Elementary School.
Jason, I know you've been in Sioux Falls in business for quite a while, and take us through your business history and what you've done. You've been really active in the community.
Sure. So I spent a few years at Boss's Pizza. I owned the Harrisburg store for a couple years. When I sold that, I joined my friend Eric. Him and his family owned Weiser Distributing, and we started with 3 or 4 of us, and spent the last 7 years really exploring the world of online e-commerce. And we grew our business from 4 people to 145 people over 7 years.
That's incredible growth. Yeah. So you talk about online marketing. What's the secret in that versus traditional business?
Yeah, so we kind of got in at the right time, the right industry at the right time. It's all about the customer experience, and so we kind of adopted that philosophy real early. And every decision we made was just based on how does this help the customer. So that's the online. E-commerce is all about customer experience. They want it quick, they want it fast, and so we kind of just adopted that method, and it worked really well for us.
Now, I understand that you're also a referee.
Yep.
Do you do football, and do you do basketball, or is it just mainly football?
Right. No, I do both football and basketball. Our football crew has a full schedule. We do 10, 11 games every year together, and then last year I did about 65 varsity basketball games. Throughout the state, all over from, Aberdeen down to Yankton. So
you don't have to exercise then, because you get your exercise doing that.
The few weeks before basketball season starts is when I really need to exercise. But by the end of the season, it's pretty good. Yeah.
So as a referee, what would you say to us parents that have kids in school and/or people? Because I think people complain more openly now and give you guys kind of you men and women a hard time as a referee. So what would you tell us?
So it's just different when you don't get to sit up high and have a good angle on these things. I mean, when you're right up on the play, it's like a bang bang judgment, and you're like 50-50. 50% of the crowd thinks it's a great call, and 50% of the crowd thinks it's not. So when I was first starting, it really bothered me. Because I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I just wanted every single call perfect, and you're just not gonna please everybody. So once you get some experience under your belt, you barely even hear the crowd anymore. So if I had one piece of advice, I would just say, relax, enjoy the game, and let us do our best.
You do the best that you can.
Right, yeah.
Exactly, because you got to make a judgment, you got to make a call.
Yep.
Not everybody's going to be happy. It's kind of like life too, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, it really is. Tell us about your family, a little bit more about your family.
Sure. So 2 daughters, Raina and Mallory, and they are active, little blonde tornadoes, we call them. We play competitive softball and soccer, and we're active in our church community. I'm the president of our church, Holy Cross Lutheran, and so my wife teaches Sunday school, and we're in all the activities that are going on there, so we stay pretty busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it, very busy. So you get this call from Mayor Tenhaken. You're an entrepreneurial person.
Right.
You've been in business. You've started a couple of businesses with teams, obviously. What was your first reaction when the mayor called and said, I want you to head up this innovation and technology department for the city?
So I was actually sitting on a golf cart with Eric Weiser, partner in my last business, and I look down and it says, Paul Tenhaken calling, and I kind of nudge him and say, this will be good. And he calls me and he says, I'm at this innovation conference with all these mayors in Chicago, and we've got to do this. You've got to do this job. It's perfect for you. And I say, awesome, love the idea, but I've got a good thing going on here, so not really interested. And so he says, okay, fair enough. And a couple weeks pass, and he fires me another note and says, we got to have lunch. And over the course of 2 or 3 lunch meetings, we just talked about this job and this opportunity and what it might mean for the city. And I went from a 0% chance to, you know, a 100% chance through 2 or 3 meetings with him and just talking about this thing. So at the end of the day, I think it's one of the coolest jobs in the city, working for one of the coolest guys in the city. So it's kind of the right connection.
Now, innovation and technology has come from the previous Central Services Department, and your department now focuses on communications, information technology, and GIS, Geographical Information Systems.
Right.
Did I get that correct?
Right.
So lots of potential to innovate there. Just as in a nutshell, we'll get into depth after we take a break, but what does the mayor foresee you doing, the vision that you're working on together for this department now?
Yeah, so I think the biggest vision, the top level vision, is that I think this department for a long time had been kind of a support department. They kind of waited for other teams, other departments to ask them for help. All 3 departments really. And we're kind of taking a new approach where we want to kind of make it a strategic, visionary department. We want to use our technology, our tools, to go solve problems before other departments even realize they have them. So just a more strategic approach to communications. Our GIS department used to be just kind of a mapping department. We're using that as like the data center, you know, of all the analytics that come in, all the data points. They're going to kind of own the data analysis of the whole city. So.
And that's what's amazing about GIS, the interaction it has across the city and the services it provides to the fire department, even to the library system, being able to get intelligence on where people live and what they do.
Right. As we are kind of pushing forward through some smart city initiatives, every initiative, every module that they have is data driven. So this department, GIS, is really going to own all that data, collect all that data, reorganize the data, understand the data, and use that to make good decisions.
Okay, can't wait to talk more about it. We're going to take just a short break. When we come back, we're going to dive into what Jason and his new team are going to do for you in the city of Sioux Falls when we come back on Directions.
They're glowing beacons that light our way. Streetlights in the city of Sioux Falls illuminate our travels, brighten our roads, and keep us safe. So what do you do if you see a streetlight out or malfunctioning? The City of Sioux Falls has made it easy to report a problem in your community with the Streetlight Hotline at 373-6979 or log on to siouxfalls.org. Give them as much information as you can and crews will be out to fix the problem as soon as possible. Thank you for helping make Sioux Falls a better place to live.
Welcome back to Sioux Falls Directions. Our guest is Jason Reisdorfer, our new Director of Innovation and Technology for the City of Sioux Falls. Jason, you've been here since October. We talked earlier in the segment that you were talking about when you're doing refereeing that 50% of the people think you're right, 50% of the people think you're wrong. When you look at innovating and doing things innovatively, does that haunt you too? Because it's hard to be innovative knowing that 50% are thinking that you're all wet, 50% think you're right. So how do you approach being innovative? Yeah,
so we, some people think that innovation is coming up with a bunch of new ideas, and it's not really that. It's identifying old issues and then kind of hitting them from a new angle. So from that perspective, I don't think that there's that many people that are necessarily, against you like it is in basketball. I think that the issues that have haunted us kind of for many months, many quarters, many years are the ones that we kind of attack, and it's not a brand new way of coming up with a plan. It's just a new way of addressing it. So from that perspective, I think there's a lot more support for some of these issues. People want to solve problems, and that's really what our team is here to do.
One of the quotes I saw on your Twitter site I thought was great, from Tom Freston, saying that innovation is taking two things that already exist and kind of putting them together in a different way.
Right.
Does that really say how you're approaching this?
Very much so, yeah. Simon Sinek and a lot of these guys say that innovation is just a new way of solving old problems. So that's what this is all about. It's not coming up with some teleport machine from the future. It's taking something that's real, that's causing our citizens some pain and our employees some pain points, and just trying to spot those efficiencies and work on those issues. Yeah.
And sometimes with innovation, obviously, oftentimes comes change. People can be afraid of change.
Yep. So change, a little bit scary. And so I approached that, with my team from day one. I just hit the ground running, meet everybody one-on-one, really open, really transparent, say, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. And when you start to share the messages with those people, they get buy-in. And over and over, these folks are telling me, wow, I've never met with a director before one-on-one. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? You sit 5 feet away from me. And so I think that alone, that's a new way of dealing with employees, and from an entrepreneurial level, my previous staff of 145 people, we treated each one like they're a mini CEO. And every one of the people that I met with the first couple weeks working here, I said, one of the questions I had for them is, what would you do if you were mayor? What would be the first thing you would do if you were mayor? And they all like, wow, I never really thought about that. But if you think of the mayor as our CEO, and we empower all of our employees to be mini mayors and say, what would you do first? A lot of good stuff comes out of that.
So how are you going to bring people together, not only the citizens, because you have multiple customer bases per se, the employees, the citizens, the city council, and lots of different organizations across the city of Sioux Falls. How are you going to bring that style of communication to them? Yeah,
so I envision a few months from now that we'll have created some sort of a citizen innovation board that keys individuals that have ideas in our city that don't necessarily work for our city, and whether it's through Facebook polls or Survey Monkey surveys, just getting their input. A lot of times they're going to be your biggest supporters, and if they're kind of the ones that are coming up with the ideas and you can kind of curb them in a way to fit your agenda, it's a lot easier to get stuff done with support than it is fighting against it. Yeah.
So what are some of those innovative tools that we'll start using to have those communications and to measure perceptually what people are thinking and what they want?
Yeah, so one of the very first things that we're going to do in our department is we're going to work on a city dashboard that takes our data that we have and lays it right out on our website and says, this is how we're doing. And it's going to be trackable, and it's going to be measurable. And so the citizens are going to be able to look and say, oh, crime is this, homelessness is this, whatever the measure is that we decide. And we're going to, like I said, just with our employees, we're going to share that data right out in the open. And I think some people might say, oh, based on this data, we should maybe work on this thing in this order. And so there's not one person that's going to come up with the answer for all this stuff, not the mayor, not me, but somebody, sharing it with everybody is going to really create those opportunities to solve those problems and figure out those issues.
So you've been here for just a few weeks. Can you share with us any big goals or big things that you're going to tackle right off the bat? One
of the first big things that the mayor has set on my plate is to try and tackle our city transit problem, our public transit problem. This has been, from what I understand, an issue that several task forces have tried to tackle, and not super successfully. And so we actually partnered with a really good organization, the Harvard Bloomberg Philanthropies Institute. They help cities with innovation tracks, and you can offer up a variety of issues that you're working on, and they'll help you solve one for 9 months. And so we're going to be tackling this transit issue from a whole new perspective. And we've created in Sioux Falls what's called a core team. And we've asked the directors and the mayor to nominate who we think are real strong innovators on all the different departments. So someone from the police department, someone from the fire department, someone from the library, someone from the health department. We're kind of finding the best and the brightest innovator in each one of those departments, putting them together on one team, and that team is going to look at it from a fresh new perspective. And I think before, some of the transit issues were tried. They were tried to be tackled by transit people, and sometimes when you're working in the problem, you don't really get to work on the problem. And so it's a fresh new approach to transit, and we've got a 9-month track with Bloomberg Harvard. And at the end of it, we're hoping that we can have a real good, solid plan for what we're going to do for the future.
And just as background, so people know, is that the transit system is contracted out. It's not necessarily a city entity,
right,
but the city oversees it, obviously, and pays for it.
Yep. The biggest issue is that our city has grown out, sprawled, instead of most urban cities that grow up. and stay centralized. And so our transit doesn't even necessarily reach the edges of our city. I just for kicks, I looked on the transit map to see where I could jump on the bus close to my house. It's like 3 miles away from where I live. So that's obviously an issue. There's other people that live further out than I do. They can't get to a bus right now. So addressing that issue, I think, is going to be huge for our workforce development, for helping our citizens get to work, and so it'll be really interesting to see what we come up with.
And you speak of workforce development. One of the key issues for that is connectivity. And the city's looking at 5G, being one of the leaders in 5G in the country right now.
Right.
Internet access and all of that's good for business and it's good for individuals. You going to be involved in that?
Yeah, so we've, right away, we got some folks in to tell us about what it would take to get 5G into Sioux Falls. We've got some good partners. There's a couple of wireless partners and a couple of big connectivity partners, and I think it's a real deal. And it's really good to have the support of Senator Thune on this. This is his hometown, and he'd love Sioux Falls to be one of the first mid-market cities to have 5G. And I think it's a real attainable thing. We've got a mayor that's really not trying to make money on the solution, and I think that's where some of the other cities have been hung up, where they try to make money on the service providers putting up the towers. If we can break even on that, just having the 5G will open the doors for so many things. So many of the smart city initiatives, like traffic cameras that spot near misses before they happen, or gunshot detection modules that hear a gunshot and can pinpoint to like the nearest foot where it originated. All that is relying on 5G technology. So if we can get it here, even if it's at break even and we don't profit on it, it's going to be a game changer for our citizens.
That's fascinating. So it can do all of those things because of the speed. Help us understand how much faster 5G is than 4G.
Right. So from what I understand, it's somewhere between 10 to 100 times faster. So a movie that would take you an hour to download takes you 2-3 seconds to download.
Seriously?
So, yeah, it's crazy fast.
That's incredible. So just as you talked about your GIS division and all those smart types of things it can do in the community, that 5G can help us be safer, help us find more efficiencies, avoid accidents, all those things you talked about.
Yeah, the toolkit that it opens up is almost limitless. And one of the biggest things that I think it'll do is it'll attract young people to come here or stay here. Our college graduates, they don't have to go to Kansas City or they don't have to go to Indianapolis to get 5G. Sioux Falls would have 5G. They would maybe stay. And some of these big employers, especially the data-driven employers, they're saying, heck yeah, Sioux Falls has 5G. Let's plan our business there. So not only does it open up the toolkit for what it can do for our citizens, but I think it's a game changer in our workforce development too.
That sounds incredible. Let's look internally before we end here and talk about your individual divisions. First of all, information technology. The city has made a lot of changes before you came with new software initiatives for finance and how we keep track of our assets and being good stewards of taxpayer money. How do you see IT improving in the future?
So just like the other departments, I think IT can start to pave the way for solving some of these problems. Our IT team is super sharp. Our IT manager, John Clemmy, very, very knowledgeable, very aware of what's going on, very up to date on current technologies. And so I think these guys for a long time, I think, have felt like they were the guy at the circus following the elephant around with the shovel. And I think instead of that, they're going to be leading the elephant from now on in the city. And all these problems that we're trying to tackle is going to be supported through technology, and that lives right in our IT department. So huge player in our innovation group.
GIS
is, it's going to be rebranded, I think, coming up soon. GIS is going to go from maps to data. GIS is going to own our data. They are going to analyze our data, and they're going to be sharing that data with the other departments and say, hey, look at this. Here's a data point that is interesting, it's meaningful, let's do something with it. And so very strategic, very visionary leader in that department, super knowledgeable, and they've just unlocked a toolkit for a system that we've already had but just not explored very deep, and it's going to be providing us the dashboard for our city. So whatever you want to know about our city is going to live within GIS. The data is, yeah.
And it is fascinating because you talked about maps. They have all the views from space, right? And so they can map out and really tell you what's under the ground and all of that kind of stuff. So they've got that basic data. So how is that data going to propel us forward, being able to use it in innovative ways?
Yeah, so I think all the decisions that we make, we could do one of 100 things. Doing them in the right order is going to matter, and I think the data is going to support that. It's going to help us decide how to prioritize, the issues, and from where the population's based out of to where our downtown workers originate from. That'll help us with how we map and plan our infrastructure. So huge data-driven, basis for this department.
It's going to be exciting to see. And then communications. Traditionally the mayor has either had a chief of staff. This mayor does have a chief of staff. The previous one did not. And so communications has been kind of political and internal and external all at the same time. Are you going to try and bring all that together?
We're communications has just undergone a rebranding from a multimedia support to a communications department. The reason is because we want that communications department to be leading the communications, not just waiting to create a flyer for the departments or for the zoo, but to say, hey, listen, this is important. Let's let our citizens know. This is important. Let's let our employees know. So, kind of starting the communication thread with us rather than kind of ending it with them is a big initiative. The other piece that I think is really cool is the CityLink channel. Huge opportunity. We've got a great team, a great set of producers. We've got some tools. They're the department that has the One City drone, and so I've already been talking with the communications manager on how we're gonna use some of those things more, how we're gonna create better content, more content, and so I'm really excited to roll that out, over the next few months too.
Well, as we close here, you appreciate information, you appreciate feedback. Tell us as citizens how we can help you do your job and talk to you about ideas. What's the best way to get those to you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty social. Okay, so Facebook, LinkedIn, my city email, I share as much as possible. Anybody that has an idea, there's been several citizens that have reached out and they say, I'm from Chicago. I used to live in Sioux Falls. I think it's really cool what you're doing. Next time I'm in Sioux Falls, would you meet with me? And I say, absolutely. And these guys have a great perspective, being outside of Sioux Falls looking in. And so I'll talk to anybody about anything. And like I said, I'm not going to be the one that comes up with all these genius ideas. It's going to be somebody else. So, if somebody has an idea on how we can do something a little bit better, I'd love to talk to them about it.
All right. Jason, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it, and all the best to you.
Thank you.
All right, and next time you see Jason on the basketball court, take it easy on him, because he's doing his best as a longtime referee in sports here in the Sioux Falls area in the state of South Dakota. If you'd like to get in touch with Jason and his department, it's easy to do that. Just go to siouxfalls.org, click on departments, and look for innovation and technology. And you can keep in touch with us too as well, because we're right there too under innovation and technology under CityLink. And it's also a good place to get in touch with the mayor too under the mayor's office at siouxfalls.org. I'm Reed Holson. Thank you for watching.